Hello, my name is Dr. Jackie Elliott. I'm a consultant here in Sheffield and chair of DAFNE. 2020 gave us the opportunity to change the way in which we deliver DAFNE. So when it became apparent that we could no longer deliver DAFNE face-to-face, we decided to make it remote. This is not the same as online, as I'm going to go on and describe to you, because people still get a lot of support from DAFNE educators. One thing to remember is that people really like the format of this. So I'm going to present some feedback both from the educators and from the participants of the first pilot courses that we did over the summer. So nearly 200 people took part in the pilot. You need to remember that 90% of people with diabetes that started the course finished all 5 weeks of the programme. So they really got a lot out of it and enjoyed it, and were thankful that they could get some support with their type 1 diabetes during such difficult times. Helps them to feel less isolated in this strange new world where everything needs to be remote as opposed to face-to-face. So what is remote DAFNE? So there is an online component, and the online learning has been developed with the Open University. So high quality adult learning with interactive features within it. And so over the first 4 weeks of the 5-week course, there are units to complete via the Open University in the comfort of their own home, which really helps because then you can time when you want to do the online learning. So people are able to fit it around childcare or work commitments. Each week, there's also a call with a DAFNE educator. So the DAFNE educators are specially trained to support people with type 1 diabetes, and they're either specialist nurses or specialist dietitians. This enables better discussions between people with diabetes, but also the vital peer support that we know is so valuable for people with type 1. They feel less isolated. So it's about learning together, learning from other people with diabetes, and learning from highly trained staff that fully appreciate all the complexities of type 1 diabetes. It means that people get immediate feedback, can ask questions in real time, and get answers straight away. And this hasn't just been done quickly off the cuff. It is built on 20 years of experience of delivering high quality structured education. So one of the things that we did was send out survey monkeys after each week, both to the educators and to the people on the course. And we asked the people on the course, well, how long does it take you to do this online learning? And you'll see that there's quite a spread of how long it took. Some people had never done any online learning. So those people, when you're talking to them about this, will need a bit longer. Some people like to take notes as they're going along, or perhaps go backwards and forwards within screens, just so that they can double check their understanding. And of course, that's one of the big advantages of the online environment. Other people might be very used to this virtual environment and do online learning or on their computer a lot of the time via work. So those kinds of people might not need quite as long for the online units. But you can see that it definitely is a time commitment. It's not something that is a quick fix. There is no quick fix for type 1 diabetes. And so people need to know to put aside sufficient time in order to do the online component, in order to make the most of the virtual one-to-one calls at the end of the week. So some people with type 1 diabetes have never met anybody else with type 1 diabetes until they attend a DAFNE course. And the same happens within the virtual classroom. And they usually are not used to discussing their diabetes with other people with diabetes. And so we asked them, actually, did you benefit from this? And you can see that the vast majority said that they benefited a lot by being part of the group discussion. And there were very few that said actually they would have just preferred the one-to-one. And in fact, by weeks 2, 3, and 4, there was nobody that said they preferred one-to-one. So why was it helpful to have these group discussions? And so we asked them, did it really aid understanding of the course? And you can see here, overwhelmingly, yes, it did help with understanding the course. I think it's the same with anything that we're trying to learn. If you're discussing it and discussing your ideas out loud, and also being challenged by the way that you're thinking, by what other people are saying, then it really does help you embed the understanding. And these are what these comments are really about, but also about the excellent support that the diabetes educators were giving the group. So most of the DAFNE educators are very used to doing this within a classroom environment, and they use the same kinds of skills and develop new ones to manage this within the virtual setting. I think that comment there is really interesting. I met other people who have type 1 for the first time since I was diagnosed, and they shared many of their experiences. It did help people feel a lot less isolated. And by being or feeling less isolated, it helps you come to understand you're not alone in this. And it does help with some of the psychological burden of type 1 diabetes as well. It still is very much a human interaction. We asked them what they thought of the week's learning as a whole, and you can see that gradually as people got used to it, the ratings got higher each week, with 90% saying excellent or good every week. One of the key skills in DAFNE is being able to effectively carb count. So we asked them on a scale of 1 to 10 how confident they were prior to the course, with 10 being the most confident and 1 being the least confident. And you can see there is a wide spread of answers, but the mean being 5.1. And then after the course, how confident are you in carb counting? And you can see that this has shifted dramatically, with only 1 or 2 people scoring 2, everybody else is scoring 7 or above, with a mean of 8.6. And then moving forward, what we want the carb counting to do is to enable people to adjust their insulin. And again, a really wide spread of how confident people were in adjusting their own insulin. Average score of 5. And on the same kind of rating, how confident are you in adjusting your insulin now that you've completed the remote DAFNE course? Most people scoring above 6, but the average, very good at 8.6. So this course really does empower people to look after their own diabetes. So thinking about the course as a whole, not just the online learning, not just the group work, we asked them how they would rate the entire course. And here, again, excellent, by far and away the most common answer. And then the kind of friends and family test. Would you recommend this course to other people living with type 1 diabetes? Definitely yes, overwhelmingly positive. The educators themselves didn't know how well this would be received. And we asked people with diabetes just to give us any free text of thoughts that they wanted to share. And so we've collated some of their responses here. And these responses really do closely mirror those from participants who attended a face-to-face format. So healthcare professionals in particular asked me, well, is it as good as face-to-face DAFNE? And the answer is, we don't know. This was not a randomized controlled trial. This was something that we developed very quickly to help solve the problem of what do you do when you cannot see people face to face. What we do know from years of research and collecting data is that DAFNE face-to-face does produce very definite benefits, and that's what I'm showing here. So year on year, we've got better at getting more data from people that have done DAFNE from their DAFNE centres, with more and more centres each year achieving more than 50% of paired data, so we know what their baseline HbA1c is and also their HbA1c at 12 months. And we know that there's consistently a drop of 4 to 5 millimoles each year on average for people up and down the country. This isn't based on a handful of people. This is based on last year about 1,800 people with type 1 diabetes. And we know that DAFNE really helps get more people to the target of 58 or less. So at 12 months, well over a third do have a target glucose of 58 or less. And really importantly, we know that that is being achieved with far less hypoglycemia. So the severe hypoglycemia rate is reduced year on year by 85%. We also know that the rate of diabetic ketoacidosis is reduced by at least 80% year on year. So these two things together mean that people with diabetes are far less likely to need ambulances or admissions, and therefore reducing emergency healthcare costs year on year. So is remote DAFNE as good as face-to-face DAFNE, which was the original question? I don't know. But what we do know is that we'll be collecting as much data as we can. And we know that this won't be easy for centres, but we're working out how we can support them to do this so that we can answer that question, is remote as good as face-to-face? We really hope that it is. And from the feedback that I've shown you, you can see that those responses are overwhelmingly in favour of remote DAFNE. The quality of life for people that have done it is a lot better from those comments, and so we have every hope that remote DAFNE does help fill a gap at this time when we cannot do face-to-face, and moving forward people will now have the choice of how they receive DAFNE education. Thank you for your time.